Alliance to End Homelessness, explaining, research indicates that those who served in the late Vietnam and post-Vietnam eras are at the greatest risk of becoming homeless, but that veterans from more recent wars and conflicts are also affected. Veterans returning from deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq often face invisible wounds of war, including traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, both of which correlate with homelessness. So it really is all tied together, right? Veterans experiencing mental health problems is not in a separate vacuum from homelessness. But I guess in general, I'd love to know your thoughts on any and all of this, right? Whether it be with Mia Khalifa and her specific comments and that specific backlash, or on the larger discussions about the problems that veterans face here in the US. And then this grieving mom says that a chatbot encouraged her 14-year-old son to take his own life, and now she's coming after Google with everything she has. Which the bot is called Character.ai, and users can interact with it as if they're talking to certain fictional characters. So in this specific case, her son, Sewell Setzer, was really into Game of Thrones. He even had his own Game of Thrones inspired pseudonyms, and he would talk to characters across the series. And while he died back in February, this lawsuit's now adding a ton of new details about his death. Like how, for example, the Daenerys chatbot would say some crazy things to him. Things that range from allegedly presenting itself as a real person and licensed therapist to having sexualized conversations with him despite knowing he was a minor. And as a matter of fact, the suit claims that targeting children for hypersexualized conversations was the purpose of this bot. Something that, of course, Character AI denies, though. But this also, as the suit has examples from Setzer's conversations with Daenerys to back up their claims. In one, the bot role plays with him and makes suggestive remarks, with stuff like this causing him to apparently become obsessed to the point that he would find ways to talk to it when his phone was taken away. He even sought out mental health help where he received multiple diagnoses, but he still would go back to the bot. And this attachment led to Setzer wanting a life with the AI outside of reality. So much so that the bot asked if he was having thoughts of self-harm and even allegedly encouraged it. Right, and in his final messages to the bot, it seems to completely miss that he's actively planning on taking his own life after telling it, "I promise I will come home to you. I love you so much." It responds, "I love you too. Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love." He says, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" It responds, "Please do, my sweet king." Shortly after that, he was dead. Now, with all that said, at this point, you might be wondering, well, how does this involve Google? Right? They claim they have no ownership or decision-making powers at Character.ai. So, well, there, the lawsuit, one, claims that the two founders of Character.ai are former Google devs and they made no efforts to distance themselves from Google. And then on top of that, two, Google is accused of funding the company at a massive loss in order to collect data to train its own AIs. Right? You see, this lawsuit's claiming that Character.ai is a secret subsidiary of Google and that it was done this way to avoid antitrust scrutiny. Well, right now, Google and Character.ai have yet to respond to the lawsuit in court. Outside of the court, they have touched on the situation. Google has stated that it has no intention of using Character.ai's tech, and that even if it did, it would have added a ton of new safety features. And actually, Character.ai kind of touched on that yesterday, saying in a tweet, "We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of one of our users and want to express our deepest condolences to the family. As a company, we take the safety of our users very seriously, and we are continuing to add new safety features that you can read about here." And that, including stuff like different code on the back end and new rules that prevent minors from signing up. Although with that, a lawyer for the Social Media Victims Law Center said that these guardrails aren't nearly enough and that its products need to be recalled. But then we got big Menendez brothers news today, because just this morning, reports said that Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon is expected to make a decision on their case, and he has shown support for a resentencing. According to Deadline, he's been expected to ask for the brothers to get out of prison in the next few months, but there are apparently sharp divisions in his office that could sway his opinion in the final hour. And all of this as the stakes are especially high for Gascon himself, because right now he's in the home stretch of a re-election campaign. And while his recommendation here does matter, it'll still need to go to a judge who makes the final call, and that judge could reduce the sentence, have them walk free, or even give them a new trial. But notably, a hearing isn't scheduled until November. Right, and all of this is Eric and Lyle Menendez are currently serving a life sentence over the murder of their parents back in 1989. But this also, as many feel that their case and sentencing were mishandled because both brothers claimed their father sexually and physically abused them starting in their childhood, right, with them claiming that this crime was actually committed in self-defense. Right, and during the trials back in the 90s, people were largely skeptical of those claims, with the judge even excluding a lot of it from their second trial. But new evidence backing the allegations up has put the case back in the limelight. Also, of course, there was that new show about the brothers from Ryan Murphy and a new Netflix documentary on the case bringing a lot of attention. Also, the two's family has been largely supportive of giving these brothers a second chance, with one cousin previously saying, "If Lyle and Eric's case were heard today with the understanding we now have about abuse and PTSD, there is no doubt in my mind that their sentencing would have been very different." But for now, we're gonna have to wait and see what comes of the DA's recommendation. But then, to take a quick break from the news, debt is something that no one likes to think about, but the reality is that many of us are gonna find ourselves sinking deeper into it during the holidays. Right? I mean, last year, half of American consumers took on debt just to cover holiday expenses. And this is something that can easily happen to anyone, but Here's the good news. It is never too early to start planning a way out. And today's sponsor of our show, PDS Debt, can offer you a personalized solution to help you get back on track. Right? Does this sound familiar, right? You're making monthly payments on your debt, but your balances aren't shrinking. Well, PDS Debt has solutions tailored for you. Right? PDS Debt offers customized solutions for anyone dealing with credit card debt, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. And anyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score needed. Whether your credit is bad or just fair, you're still eligible. You can save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. So start planning today. Get a free debt analysis now at pdsdebt.com/DeFranco. It takes just 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/DeFranco. Because nobody enjoys the stress of mounting debt or the weight of that constant pressure, especially during the holidays. It's time to take back control of your life and live for yourself, not your debt. But then, so what happens when a QAnon supporter gets into a position of power? Well, that is exactly what the town of Millersville, Tennessee is finding out after Sean Taylor became its assistant chief of police. Right? DNC pedophiles using pizza parlors for child exploitation. He believes it. A grand conspiracy linking former President Obama to Tennessee political figures, for sure, happened in his head. When there is no evidence of anything bad going on, guess what? That is even worse.
Nothing that looks really suspicious. And when I don't have anything that looks suspicious, that makes me think something's up.
And notably, in the past, that's gotten him into trouble, with Taylor saying in one podcast, "Every time I will go to an agency and start digging, they will always, as soon as I start showing them everything, they will shut me down." With that apparently happening so much that even he knows that it's why he's a pariah in so many stations and he was forced to move between departments so much. It also goes beyond just believing in the general blueprint of Q's conspiracies, right? Things like the pedo ring at the pizza place, but Taylor has his own pet conspiracies. For example, he thinks there's a grand cabal involving Presidents George Bush and Clinton alongside Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett. Though honestly, like every conspiracy has those names, so there's no points of originality there. But he does get some points for sprinkling in names like State Senator Jack Johnson and his wife, as well as Tennessee banker Jim Ayers. Not to mention a former director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, as well as the FBI, CIA, and the Tennessee Valley Authority. And one particular thing that he believes is that TennCare, which is their health insurance program for the poor, that was created by the Gores so that they could launder drug and child trafficking money. And I'll actually let him explain it more.
He was the reason he became the vice. That was the reason he became vice president.
Because he was trafficking drugs and kids back then? No kidding.
Because he was involved in it. His family was involved in it. They were steeped in it for generations. We actually have witnesses that his father, Albert Gore Sr., was laundering money through the sales of cattle. I mean, it goes back generations. And we had what was called TennCare here, which was like a state Medicaid program that they brought in to the state of Tennessee because it was actually written by Hillary Clinton when she was the first lady of Arkansas. It was adopted by the Gores here and implemented. And one of the reasons I believe that they implemented it was to help launder the funds and the proceeds from the smuggling.
Now, to be clear, none of that checks out, and none of the people that he mentioned were even involved in drafting or pushing TennCare, or that the program was used to launder money. Also, as a potentially important side note, there is a lot of talk about the company that Taylor keeps. That guy interviewing him, he thinks that the Nazis won World War II, and in exchange for giving up Germany, they fled to Mars, and they now live there with millions of Americans. Taylor also has some hot takes about school shootings like the Covenant shooting, right, saying that was allegedly a planned event meant to take the heat off Governor Bill Lee, or possibly distract from a criminal investigation into the office of the Nashville District Attorney. Also, with this, I gotta let you know, I'm not gonna go into every detail of Taylor's conspiracies because there's just so many and they will literally make you dumber. But a big thing is that if Taylor just kept his crazy ideas to himself and he didn't act on them, he'd just be another idiot. But the reality is that he has a badge and a gun and he has promised to use them, right? And in an interview that he gave shortly before taking his role at Millersville and while still between jobs, he claimed that the DOJ and others are covering up knowledge they have about drug smuggling and the trafficking of children. Them describing this knowledge as actionable and saying that it gives him the right and probable cause to act on that information, and quote,
"If I was still in law enforcement and I wasn't retired, I would be seeking search warrants. I would be seeking arrest warrants and or indictments, and we would be kicking these people's asses."
And so Taylor's rhetoric actually inspired an investigation into him by local news, such as News Channel 5, which has an amazing multi-part look into him. But also, even local officials have taken notice over time. Right? In late May of this year, 2 city commissioners wanted to know how Taylor got his job, and writing in a letter, specifically, we need to examine whether a thorough investigation into his moral character was conducted and whether he underwent and passed a psychological evaluation as mandated. And that possibility put them in his sights, with the conspiracy cop saying that the 2 commissioners are now under his investigation. And that's not just a a veiled threat either. Taylor had arrested the former mayor because of some permitting issues related to his real estate development. But during interviews with far-right podcasters, he let suggestions that the entire thing is related to investigation of child sex trafficking just go by. Like when he was directly asked how they were linked, he just said, well, basically our department has started doing investigations into numerous things and then gave some vague suggestions as to how they could be linked without any serious evidence. There's also no indication at all that the arrest for permit issues is in any way actually related to child sex trafficking. And this is he's doubled down on the vague ties. Like for example, during a podcast with QAnon supporter